Alright, so this is my week 4 and week 5 video. Unfortunately, I had some Wi-Fi issues for week 4, and actually, I also had some Wi-Fi issues for week 5, which you'll see later. But what I mean is that I wasn't able to upload my video because normally I record on the day that we're meant to upload, and I'll just chuck it up. But unfortunately, Wi-Fi cut out for like half the week, so I was just gone for a couple days, and then yeah, after the Wi-Fi came back, unfortunately, I had like a housing inspection come up, a birthday to attend to, so things got a little bit hectic there for a sec, but now we're back. Just gonna catch us up all in one video because I'm lazy. So yeah, gonna just do the regular, cover the first matchup, and then I'll just do a second one. Um, yeah, let's just jump into this then. I don't want this to take like a million years. Alright, so for week 4, we play Rai. Rai is a fantastic player, and yeah, I've been looking forward to playing Rai. Yeah, we've played a few times. He's gotten the better of me, I think, most of those times. So I just want to get my revenge on him. Yeah, he's got this cool Veil team, Veil HO with Dragon Ball King Gambit, Azu, like Thundy, um, some interesting low tier picks as well, some sleeper threats, Driftbloom, Gallade, Ice-Q, um, solid support with Crook, Quill, and of course Ninetales. Yeah, really threatening team. Um, and yeah, this was another matchup. Actually, it's been a while. What did I take? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is another matchup where I just felt like I could not keep up defensively if I tried to go that route. And I mean that's just a Gen 9 thing. You get used to it. But no, it's a real problem for my team because my team just is really ill-equipped um, uh, for fast-paced offense, and especially in this matchup, not only does he have the tools to just slaughter any sort of defensive orientated build that I might opt for, but he also just dude, this is such a bad Spectre matchup. I mean, I could have forced it. Spectre is so good that you can do that, but uh, yeah, between Dragapult, his priority, there being multiple dark types that are both likely to come, felt very difficult to force Spectre, especially considering one of the dark types is a King Gambit. And I felt as though King Gambit not necessarily Terra Dark, but it was more than possible. Terra Dark is very spooky into my team, as I have some very chippable or removable Dark resists, Zarude and Zapdos. Yeah, and yeah, you don't typically look at the anti as a roadblock towards King Gambit like win cons. Yeah, so that was definitely something that was going through my mind when I was prepping this. So I decided to bench Spectre because of all of those roadblocks. But yeah, if you take away the Spectre on my team, just pretend I don't have it, my team suddenly becomes comically slow. So that was definitely a major concern in the builder for me. But you know, yeah, I did manage to come up with what I felt like was a pretty decent build, and yeah, definitely some interesting ideas. So yeah, let's break this down. So I'll break this down in order of like how I came up with the build. So the first one that I put on the team was the Titan. And the point of cetitan was I was always planning on leading this. I think there might have been some exceptions depending on what he took, where I could have led the route instead, but generally I was definitely opting for the Titan lead more often than not. Based off of his draft, because and the reason being is that I expected a couple of different leads, and the Titan just matches up really well into all of them, such as Dragapult, Crocodile, Ninetales, and Thundurus. And the real dilemma I had is that I just wanted to try to pick the game from turn one, but it's really difficult to make around all of those Pokemon, especially when you have things like turn one Veil threatened, but you can pivot to like Intim Rock Croak. That's just a bit of a nuisance to pivot around. because especially because it takes items. So I actually have multiple fantastic switches to Croak, but because it takes items, things like Scarf G-Zap and Lumberry Zarude no longer like they're not comfortable with switching in Croak. Like he gets something for it, and then he can pivot into them accordingly. Since they're not immediately claiming a kill, so it's definitely awkward if I have to switch into Croak immediately. So I wanted to avoid that. Dragapult, of course, very difficult one to switch into. A running theme for me this season has been my inconsistency with being able to, or not inconsistency, but just inability also to be able to consistently switch into Ghost and Dark to a degree as well, which yeah we see in abundance offensively for him here. Um, so yeah, just another scary lead pivot that could do a lot of damage. And then Thunderous, similar idea, just a lead pivot um, that he could just go for. Thunderous is a little bit odd as a lead, to be fair, if I have Landorus, because it prefers Hail being up so it can threaten Weather Balls, but it's still annoying. So yeah. The Titan covers for all of that, and yeah, it led me to the specific Titan variant. I didn't see myself ever setting up into this team. It's just taking time that I simply don't have. And in addition to that, I really liked this all-out attacking set. Sacrificing coverage also seemed a little bit awkward for me here. So the set hit everything relatively hard. Yeah, of course, Earthquake for the like of King Gambit, Quillfish, Heavy Slam is a must for Ninetales, but it's also a really powerful neutral attack into things like Azu, and then of course, and then yeah, just Icicle Spear for everything else. Ice Shard, very useful priority as well. So all the attacks made sense to me, um, and seemed necessary. And AV actually addresses a problem that I mentioned earlier, that Thundy with Weather Ball. If he gets Thundy in Hail, it's threatening Weather Ball for my Lando, for my Zarude pre-Terra, and because of that, I don't really have a great switch into it, so I thought the Titan would be a good response to that. Insta Titan is also with AV a decent soft check to Dragapult, which is another Pokemon that my team really struggles against. Drifloon, I suppose, if he took that, but I'm really not expecting Drifloon to come like that. So yeah, the Titan very solid and solves a lot of my problems defensively. If it doesn't die off lead, just getting tons of value. So yeah, that's the Titan. Following this, the Titan, um, yeah, the Titan, I kind of took the approach of trying to figure out a lead and then sequence things out from there and have like a planned response to different things depending on what he did. So from the Titan, I knew I needed a Gambit and a Azu response, respectively. The two potential pivots to them on. And yeah, they're also big threats, so I can't afford to just I needed a specific game plan because if I just leisurely switch around and don't have particular outs to those Pokemon, like Azu can get out of hand with Belly Drum very quickly, and King Gambit is the King Gambit, so yeah, it's dangerous. So yeah, I came up with Corviknight and Lando. Lando is my dedicated King Gambit switch in. Its spread allows it to live, I believe, Defiant boosted Iron Head into Sucker Punch. Um, which is pretty cool. So even if he is Defiant, my Landorus can deal with that relatively well. And yeah, it's just a dedicated Gambit switch in with Taunt, Stone Edge, just in case. Stone Edge is useful coverage here, but Taunt helps cover for SD if he is some Terra type that I'm not able to effectively punish offensively. And yeah, it just helps me keep SD Supreme Overlord sets in check so that I'm more easily able to revenge it with my Dark Resist. So yeah, um, that's Lando. Very simple. The Fizz Def set is of course also useful for other Pokemon, Croak, Quillfish to some degree, depending on the set, and Gallade. Um, even physical Dragapult. So it definitely got some utility, but its primary use was to be a dedicated Gambit check. And then, yeah, outside of the Landorus, I have this Corviknight. this corviknight is specifically here to address Azumarill. It just switches in and uses helmet mirror armor to get around liquidation drops, and it's just there to chip down Azu and soak any damage from band. If it's belly drum, then I'm willing to stack my corviknight in exchange for Braybird chip. Between the belly drum and the Braybird chip, Azu can just be promptly revenged by Zarud and is effectively out of the game, which is corviknight's job done basically. I mean, there's some extra utility it can bring to me this game, but yeah, trading with Azu is its number one purpose. So I wouldn't mind belly drum here either. So yeah, and the speed, yeah, the EVs, I mean, yeah, is speed creeping Azu, I believe. So I'm faster than Adamant, and I didn't expect Jolly, and rest is in Fizdef. If I could have run more defense, I would have, but yeah, speed is non-negotiable. Getting outfed by belly drum, well, would potentially just cook me immediately, depending on what its set is, and depending on the position of the game. So yeah, definitely can't risk that. Yeah, and also being slower than Banded, also unacceptable actually. So yeah, just can't be slower than Adamant Hazu. Does way too much damage. Yeah, so that's that, and then from there, I wanted another soft Dragapult check because there's no guarantee that the Titan is gonna survive any opening exchange. It's possible that, well, first off, it's a dedicated Thundy check, so if it does survive, it's not surviving to check the Dragapult, it's there for the Thundy. But yeah, in the event that I need something else to switch into Dragapult, which is quite likely, I can use DMC. And the spec set with max speed is pretty cool because I believe it's able to avoid most Twickios from Dragapult. I assume things like spec Surf is Twickoing me. Dragapult is not that weak, but yeah, it's sorry, my memory is a little shaky. It's been a while since I played this game, but yeah. Yeah, and then specs. My reasoning behind specs is the matchup is really fast-paced, so I fully anticipate that I'll need this damage probably. It's really useful into Azu after a little bit of helmet chip. Moonblast is picking that guy off. Similarly with Gambit, and this is specifically extremely nice against Terra Dark, like I mentioned. If Zarude and Zapdos predictably get chipped, I could keep the Deontay around, and it's much easier to rely upon to get the Gambit. And he's actually less likely to suck a punch into my Deontay. Knowing that it's bulky, he may not anticipate that it's max speed as well. So yeah, and Specs is just doing fantastic damage to King Gambit. And yeah, in general, just trying to make the most of my DNC turns with spammable Moonblasts seems really nice. So yeah, and then rocks, if I get the opportunity to, would be nice to put up, but unlikely because my team is going to be clicking a lot of defog probably and a lot of brick break in the event that he takes Ninetales because I can't allow Veil to stay up. And yeah, that's my dependence on defog and brick break to remove Veil is why I needed such reactive responses to all of his offensive Pokemon, because he'll likely use the initiative that he gets from forcing me to remove the screen to reposition into one of those threats on like a Corviknight or a Zarude. And yeah, then I'll have to switch. So that's just the reasoning behind the build. Speaking of which, next we got Zarude. Zarude is Terra Fairy. Yeah, in general, this is just another punish to Dragapult. And it's just a generally strong Pokemon here with this coverage just kind of cooks, to be honest. It's relatively difficult for him to switch into. It's just really good utility. Gonna help keep that screen off if I need a secondary option outside of default Corviknight, in case Corviknight gets traded with Azu or just gets overwhelmed. And yeah, this is another out against Dragapult, which scared me a lot, especially if it were DD. Having another out to that, I don't know. Maybe DD wasn't that scary, but yeah, my team is a little flimsy, I felt like, so having that security was nice. Of course, the main thing with Terra Fairy is I can Terra and maintain my defensive typing utility against Gambit, so I'm still a Sucker Resist. I'm better against Dragapult. Still good against Crook. Uh, and yeah, the coverage is pretty simple. I mean, Fairy was relatively free here, but I needed Brick Break and I needed Dual Stab. So yeah, unfortunately couldn't fit it. And Encore is just useful tech against Gambit, against Qwilfish, against Arthur, etc. Yeah. So that's third here, pretty simple. Lumber is to get around Will-O-Wisp or like status from Qwilfish even, or even like Hypnosis from Ninetales or like yeah Drifloom even if that came as well. Just seemed relatively useful to me. There are some other items that I considered, but Zerud is likely to be trading into Dragapult, and if he has Will-O-Wisp, I don't want to get crippled by that and screwed over. So yeah. And then Scarf G-Zap, naturally. G-Zap is just fantastic into this team as a Scarfer. He's got dual Intimidate and just really weak flying resist. King Gambit is not an ideal Brave Bird check, but I suppose it works to some degree against a Scarf variant. He has to scout it first anyways though, so I'm still getting a free Brave Bird off on something else on his team. And outside of King Gambit, he really only has Thunderous, which is just not an effective check at all. So yeah, I feel as though the Zapdos is pretty good, and yeah, I got a ton of defense on this so that I can live like some King Gambit hit. I think it's like +2 Sucker Punch with Max Supreme Overlord after like rocks. Because King Gambit is insane, and I need a ton of defense to just live that. So yeah, that's the team. Enough yapping, let's get into this. So, to my surprise, he benched the Ninetales, which was a bit of a nightmare for me, because it's not just that his team is threatening, but it's the fact that I had limited ways of controlling the Veil, so having to react to that because I just couldn't deal with his threats with Veil up, created a ton of easy positioning and momentum for him. I'm surprised he gave that up, because even if he couldn't maintain it, it seemed pretty advantageous. And Ninetales, in and of itself, generally is also just not very easy for me to switch into. I mean, outside of my cetitan and to some degree my DNC, it's just really annoying. And neither of these address the threat of Veil, so yeah. Anyways, in spite of him not having a Ninetales, I'm still gonna leave my cetitan and fantastic into Pult, into Thundy, into Crook. So yeah, not much else to say here, to be honest. I think we also get to see his Terra types. It doesn't show yet, but yeah, here we go. So he had Terra Poison on his King Gambit, and yeah, it's definitely a King Gambit set here. Um, Relatively difficult for my Zarude, for my Zapdos. It's interesting though because it makes my Lando's life easier. So when I saw this, I figured, okay, well, this is like this is potentially Defiant, and it's also potentially Airballoon, with the two things that really stuck out to me. Because if it's gonna stay weak to Landorus, then it needs to have some sort of punish for them on. So I figured it was something of the sort. Diancie isn't like too bothered. I have to be a little bit careful locking into Moonblast at some point in the game if my Landorus gets sufficiently chipped. Then my dedicated response will be out, and I can't allow it to set up at that point. So locking to Moonblast is made a little bit awkward by this, but yeah, my DNC as a specific countermeasure to Gambit is still relatively effective. Earth Power is going to do fantastic damage, regardless of if he tears or not now, so that's nice. And yeah, I get, as you can see, I also get this lead right, which is pretty phenomenal. So I'm just going to attack what's in front of me, and he's going to click Flash Cannon. Not exactly sure what he was going for here, but I suspect that potentially he was really concerned by the threat of Lee Belly Drum, which, yeah, I can see that. If he goes Qwilfish and doesn't have Haze, then Lee Belly Drum is probably going to wreak some havoc, so fair enough. That being said, perhaps a Haze Qwilfish may have been necessary if that was something he was having trouble with, but anyways, yeah, I'm just going to stay in because, well, I want to scout what the Qwilfish is. I don't have a comfortable scout for this mon. if I go corviknight, I'm going to be taking chip on corviknight, and I want it to be healthy for Azu still. And for King Gambit and Crook, corviknight looked phenomenal in this game, so yeah, I really did not want to allow him to weaken it so easily, so I just wanted to stay in with cetitan and Scout. So we get some Earthquake chip, and I forget what this reveals, like Fizdef, unsurprisingly. He's like not very fast either, still naturally faster than my cetitan, of course, but yeah. He's gonna pain split now. Yeah, I thought this was an odd play, and then I get really, really fortunate with the crit. Of course I crit, so it didn't really matter, but I figured that he'd, well, either spike again and then pain split if he had it, or just attack me to get some more chip off so that he could like jet. Because he doesn't want to take Ice Shard chip on Pole or Crook, but unfortunately for him he gets crit, and this Crawfish was a real nuisance for me and had a opportunity to get up many more layers. And as you'll see, he actually does have the Defiant Gambit, which is really unfortunate for him because I was probably at some point likely to default Corviknight with Corviknight if I had the opportunity to, and I assume that he would have tried to take advantage of that with his King Gambit, which definitely would have been a huge nuisance. So yeah, unfortunately things play out this way though. Tough for him, but yeah, of course this is a dream start for me. A Titan off lead has killed a third of his team and only allowed one spike up from Corfish, and it's still at 56%. I actually live a hit from Dragapult, which is why I was surprised that he went into it. Okay, actually I don't live a hit. If he's like Spec Fire Blast, he kills me, I think. But I was like, okay, I can live with getting Ice Shard chip, and if he locks into Spec Ice Shard, my DNC can go crazy, my Lander can go crazy, he doesn't have a ground switch in anymore. So he's going to double into Azu, scouting that, which is interesting. And he's just going to like just go for belly drum. At this point, he's so far behind that he really doesn't have any choice. Of course, it's in my best interest to trade with this, so I'm going to do that. The Corviknight is down, but the Azu is effectively crippled. He's going to preserve it, keep it away from my Druid, which is interesting. Probably wanting the Aqua Jet for late game, as if I'm forced to Terra or my Druid gets crippled, then yeah, the Aqua Jet could come in handy for sure. And then yeah, he's gonna go into the King Gambit, and I just decide to knock off because and not Terra. Of course, Terraing I felt was pretty bad in front of a King Gambit, but I also wanted to scout what he was gonna do, knock off a potential mental herb. So even if he doesn't, yeah, even if he doesn't Terra, I'm still getting information and getting good value out of this turn, because if he ever SDs on my Druid, of course I have Encore. So here, now that I've knocked him off, I actually got the play right, and I got this really nice chip off on him. I figured, okay, I can just switch. I also know that he's clicking Iron Head consistently, which is important. If he, for some reason, clicks something other than Iron Head, it would be worse for my Landers. So now that I have this information, I get everything that I need. I can go into Landorus really comfortably. Even if he's Defiant, he can't do a KO me unless he gets lucky. And yeah, even if he SDs, I comfortably live the Sucker Punch. So out into Landorus I go. He, yeah, is Defiant and yeah, pops SD, but as you can see, plus 3 SD is doing a measly 60% max defense. That's kind of crazy, but yeah, whatever, Landorus does its job. I have no reason to keep this around, so I'm just gonna toss it and go into my DNC. As you can see, Specs Moonblast goes pretty crazy now. So I do that, and somehow Crook lives a Specs Moonblast. I mean, I guess that makes sense. He was max Spit F as an attempt to check Spectra, but yeah, of course I bent Spectra, but it comes in handy there for him, as he uses that to get up rocks, which I thought was a little peculiar, but I guess he just wanted a reliable mid-ground. Chip is useful on cetitan. So I just trade with my Druid, go back into DNC, and DNC just cleans at this point. And if he locks into something that kills my DNC, then I have outs, but even Surf doesn't kill me at this range. And I believe he was Specs as well. So yeah, a really lucky game on my end, but a much needed win. This puts me at 2-2. And yeah. Really glad that I got my revenge on Rai, and let's move into this next game against L5. So, as you can see, I did make some trades going into this L5 game. I was sick of using corviknight because literally, like, what, for the every single week that I used corviknight, my team trended towards or was just completely denied. Like, the team basically, like, how do I put this? It was like dependent on being really defensive. Um, that's kind of the identity of the team, and it being Gen 9, I wasn't able to really go that direction for more than half my games. And even when I did go that direction in a game where I thought it was probably fine to do so, I got pretty badly exposed by some really aggressive pivot spam, and that was week 1. I got bailed by Zerud, of course, but no, I view that as a failure on the draft part. So yeah, it just felt like my team was way too passive before, so I needed something that could really allow me to take control of the game more easily. I wanted to really control the initiative. Felt like my team was too slow, too passive, and the bulk I did have really wasn't effective for what I needed it to do. So here we see the new team. I get the top 4 intact. To be honest, I was really looking for a way, not just considering, but I wanted Lander off the team, but with limited trades, I just wasn't able to make it work. Landorus, of course, is not a bad Pokemon, but I just felt like it wasn't what I was looking for. But yeah, with limited trades, I just couldn't find a way to get it off the team. It is a good ground, of course, but yeah, it's kind of difficult to replace that as a result. And yeah, with the limited trades and all the other Pokemon that I felt were kind of ill-fitting, yeah, I couldn't get rid of it, unfortunately, which is fine. I mean, my team, I feel really good about this new draft. This new draft seems pretty epic to me, actually. So yeah, um, but yeah, one gripe I definitely had. But yeah, let's just jump into some of the thought process. So Excalibur is kind of like a key piece on this new draft that I thought really brought a lot of immediate punch. My replacement for cetitan. And really, I just needed a Pokemon that could effectively break. Because Zarude is not an effective or consistent breaker. It also wants to act as a win condition or a cleaner or a pivot, but it's not like absurdly powerful. So it really shouldn't be having to take that responsibility on every week. So Excalibur is relatively consistent in that role and takes a ton of responsibility off of Zarude's shoulders. So yeah, in addition to that, I also have the likes of Taurus, which is also relatively strong and has decent stab, so it can put off a lot of offensive pressure just immediately. Has more punch. Also, maintaining that. Fuck. My throat. Fucking hell. Anyways, yeah, maintaining that priority with Aqua Jet and Ice which is really useful, especially now that I've lost the what's it called, Flash Rush user. Doing Electrode is also a new guy. I really liked the Volt switching from Electrode because my team has a lot of pivots on this. Yeah, so I thought that creating a Volt switch, well, creating a Volt Twin Core would be like really beneficial to my offense. Uh, so if yeah, I can put on a lot of pressure just by pivoting back and forth. Which yeah, it's something that I really like doing, and it's something that I feel like makes it really easy to put pressure on in some matchups. So it's just a really excellent tool to have at times. And another really fast Pokemon, of course, next to Spectria is quite nice, as my team is relatively slow outside of those two. Um, so yeah, then I filled the defensive core with Mandibuzz with Fortress. Yeah, and I mean, Mandibuzz is specifically addressing. It's like the way I saw it is Corviknight, but better, because Corviknight typically has better typing than Mandibuzz, but on this team in particular, Mandibuzz's typing is elite. It's for anybody who's been following my season, you'd have noticed that I'm struggling against Darks and Ghosts on a weekly basis. The reason for that is Zarude is really my main switch into those. My other bonds were things like GZAP and like DNC, which aren't consistent enough. So Manibuzz takes all of those hits like an absolute champ, and that's perfect because those typings in particular, I mean, they're relatively good this gen, just strong Ghost has always been a fantastic offensive type, and the Dark types this gen are elite. But specifically with my Spectre Juking start, yeah, I definitely needed a little bit more security around those types of Pokemon. So mandibuzz absolutely solves that for me, and mandibuzz is also just a little bit more proactive compared to corviknight. It's faster, it's good in foul play, which is really useful, toxic, knockoff for progression, and still a fantastic pivot. Basically still a U-turn bot, but yeah, just offers a little bit more of what I need from my U-turn bot. And there's other techs as well, like Tailwind, which is really cute, maintaining that defogging ability, which is quite nice as well. So yeah, and then lastly, we got this Fortress. Fortress often frowned upon, and it's kind of odd, but this mon has done bits for me every single time I picked it up in Gen 9. I just feel like the meta suits it perfectly. It's got fantastic niche, and it's got a fantastic typing and surprisingly usable stats. Of course, it's an absolute behemoth, physically, defensively speaking. So yeah, Fortress is a beast. With that raw typing, oh not with the raw stats and the typing combined, it's actually able to stat check a lot of physical attackers, which is really useful. And yeah, that access to spin and all of the hazards is really useful. Of course, I needed another hazard setter to go with my Landorus, and it's nice to maintain that steel typing. So yeah, that's a team. I feel much better about this team. So yeah, this is my first matchup against L5, and he has a really peculiar draft. His draft is packing threats, but it's really badly. It's just really bad defensively. Like has negative synergy defensively, and I mean I guess that happens when you draft things like Necro, Screamtail. I mean I guess it's like Screamtail, Tyranitar, which aren't bad together. Noivern covers for a lot of the things that the team dislikes as well, which is nice, but it is a Noivern, which defensively I'm not a huge fan of. I think it's at its best when it's used offensively. And speaking of which, in my team, yeah, unfortunately there were a couple of oversights when I was making these changes, so my new team is far from perfect. I definitely think it's a very strong improvement, but yeah, if you're looking at this, you'll notice that I don't have dragon cushions. Specifically, special dragons are a real problem. I mean, I have some fantastic special sponges, but Specs Draco is not easy to switch into, and no everyone can take advantage of that. But actually, worse than Specs Draco, I actually didn't even notice this when I was building for the matchup because I kind of just threw some stuff together. Um, but yeah, I get owned by flying types. I didn't even notice it at all until the game happened. But yeah, and you get that really sticks out actually now that I've said it when you go into the game because you can see my team was not well prepared. But yeah, Specs Noivern as the result goes crazy. Its dual stab absolutely ravages me. Of course, Draco is really good, but Hurricane is not so reliable. But if he is hitting the canes, then yeah, I'm gonna get absolutely feasted upon. Um, and yeah, I feel like in general his team, because it's so offensive and it's so powerful, he really needs to lean into that offense and just spam things like Specs Noivern, Specs Cardio, who's equally threatening. My team does not like switching into that guy. Water and water moves in general actually are just really difficult to switch around, seeing as my water resists are just bad into Cardio. My grass types get owned by fighting moves, and my water type just doesn't get owned by its water moves, to be honest. I'm pretty sure Taurus gets to occurred unless I max speed F, and into this matchup it can't afford to do that. So, yep. And then he's got, yeah, Tyranitar for extra draw, of course, Cloyster, really annoying with Gel Smash, uh, because it can set up on a lot of my physical attackers and a lot of my pivots, which means that I'm going to have to, in my mind I felt as though the only way to account for this was either Mirror Herb or like Scarpa, and specifically that would entail me bringing Gas Spectria. I also considered Red Card on Fortress, but Fortress had other things it needed to be doing in this matchup, as it's quite good into sand. So as a result, I opted for the Scarf Spectria. Yeah, and that was like one of the first things I put on the team because I just wanted to have reliable out against Oyster. Scarf Spec is useful against Adamant Drill as well, although he probably runs Jolly Drill, but having that is nice, and yeah, it's also just sort of nice into Keldeo, Noivern, Necro. Screamtail. Impel, Tyranitar are decent darks, but yeah, I just needed it for the Cloister, and I felt as though I could potentially get around those darks. So yeah, Impel is not a great switch into Spectra anyways, and yeah, Tyranitar, I felt like, okay, if I can chip this, then my Spectra could do a lot. So that's what Spectre would be doing. Yeah, next to that I had this Bidef eject button G-King with D-Spikes. D-Spikes are another thing he was really weak to, and Bidef eject button was my attempt at picking Specs Keldeo. In hindsight, I probably needed more Bidef on this team because I just completely forgot that Specs Noivern could click Hurricane. I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna click like Draco, and I'm gonna have like the Rude, and I'll get like really good compensation if he locks into Draco, so it's fine. I shouldn't be that afraid of offensive Northern, just super unaware of the threat of Hurricane. Yeah, so that's the G-King. I mean, it's really good into Keldeo, and it's really useful as a pivot into things like Necro with a Eject button, can scout Meteor Beam, and quite nice into Screamtail as well, and non-Vex Noivern. I mean, it's okay against Vex Noivern as well, I can do more of the same, but it kind of struggles to take on multiple spec users at a time. So yeah. So that's the G-King. Next we have this bulky banded Zarude that goes absolutely crazy into his team. In hindsight, maybe a little bit too slow paced. Maybe I could have considered Scarf, but again, I was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna take advantage of his Keldeo with G-King, and as long as G-King can keep that guy in check for a bit of time, I'll be fine. And Noivern is just free kills for my Zarude, so yeah. And then Mandibuzz, Fizdef, yeah, this is just a extra drill check, DD Necro check, and those are just really important. Its natural bulk allows it to live certain hits from Noivern, Keldeo, Gianpao even, I think, Tyranitar as well, which is quite nice. And Defog, I want to defog specifically for Screamtail. Having an out for that seemed relatively important. A little bit awkward with these spikes, but I was willing to take that. So yeah. Because once again, defog is really difficult to work around, and even though I have Raging Bull, Tauros here, um, a lot of his Pokemon don't care about Raging Bull. Keldeo, Noivern, Cloyster, even Necrozma to some degree, depending on the Terra type Excadrill. And yeah, I have to click the move. I can't click it into Screen Tower because I'm just getting owned, and I need my Tauros healthy. So yeah, I felt like I needed the extra security around the screens. Even though it's unlikely to come, I just didn't want to instant lose to them. So yeah, Scarf, Tauros, fantastic into GM and really nice into Excadrill, keep the pressure up on Keldeo, Noivern, Necro, yeah, just really good here. Not much else to say about that guy, just a fantastic natural check to a lot of his Pokemon, and then finally, Max Fizdef Fortress, and this is just really solid into Excadrill and GM I wanted a more reliable GM check. Relying on Tauros means that Tauros becomes abusable by some of his special attackers and just Necrozma in general, and is also always at risk of getting buffed by Psychic Fangs. And outside of Tauros, I also just didn't have a reliable Revenger for GM so I figured that I could make this guy Scarf and run Fizdef Fortress, which is doubly useful for the likes of Excadrill and just yeah, as a rocker, which my team didn't have already. So yeah, this was pretty nice. Gyro Body, Press Volt, which covered most things. So yeah, that's the team. So let's just jump into this. As we can see, he benches Screamtail and is probably going for all-out HR. When I saw this, I was like, okay, I'm going to lead the Rude. Screamtail was like a really good general damage sponge for him if he were to take it, and was a potential screener. So I knew that if I could get these spikes up, that would be nice. And that, yeah, screen is pretty spooky, but unfortunately that didn't come, so I don't have to worry about that. And that my Zarude clicks very freely. So I'm going to lead Zarude, and I'm immediately just going to fire off a Terra Blast. Yeah, I didn't really think too much about what this Tyranitar could have been. I just kind of assumed that it would be fat for Spectra and to enable Excadrill, which I'm lucky that it was. I just click Terra Blast and get a nice amount of dip into the Excadrill, and I'm just going to go hide out into my Afari. Harry's going to go Tyranitar, and I assume he made this double anticipating Fari, so I'm just going to double back into Tauros. Oh, not double, I'm just, yeah, going to switch out into Tauros, knowing that he's likely clicking a fire move. And here I just decide to throw out an attack, I believe. Yeah, I just click CC and I see a ton of damage on this Noivern, and then I'm like, okay, I can just go G-King, and if he U-turns or clicks an attack, I get my E button into the root, and then he clicks that, and I'm like, oh fuck, I can't go the root on this. And yeah, at this point I realized I was a little bit fucked, because if this is specs, I'm almost certain that the cardio is also specs. I mean, yeah. So, at this point, I'm like, oh shit, okay, I kind of have to go Spectria. Fortunately, he goes Cardio on my Spectria. I guess he didn't really have a whole lot left to do, and then I get really lucky with his Hydro Pump. There's a decent chance I lived that Hydro Pump, pretty sure it's in my favor. But of course, it puts me in range of rocks. I can Draining Kiss the next turn though, but I'm not sure if that gets me out of range of rocks. Judging by the fact it did 16 to a Necro, probably not. So yeah, I have Defog as well, but hard to get it off here. I'm gonna go mandibuzz. So here was another thing that I kind of fucked up. My mandibuzz originally was EV to live the meteor beam from full. I guess it doesn't matter too much because I can't pivot the next turn, but I wanted to keep Sax, but yeah, I changed it to max Fizdev thinking, oh yeah, I can just rely on my G-King to scout that, because my G-King probably can afford to do so since it's just dealing with Keldeo. Haha, haha, that didn't happen. Anyway, out in Zarud, I just have to get my tip on this and stack my entire Zarud to this as well. So now I'm down Mandibuzz and I'm down Zarud. At this point, I'm like, yeah, I'm so fucked. There's like very, very little I can do. So I'm just gonna go into Taurus, click Raging Bull. I know that my Taurus being able to live Excadrill hit is really relevant, so I'm not trying to click Wave Crash if I don't have to. I'm gonna go into Slowking and hope I dodge. He clicks Air Slash, and I'm like, okay, well, I need the Sax. This is non-negotiable, so I'm gonna have to go into Spectra, and just click Draining Kiss, I believe. Yeah, because I assume that the Draining Kiss gets me outside of range of Air Slash killing. Unfortunately, I don't work out as goddamn Tyranitar, so I'm gonna switch into Taurus. But fortunately, the one thing that Taurus does account for is also scouts for Excadrill. But I think here I was afraid of just dying, so I switch into Fortress, and he makes the Noivern pivot, which big grounds that as well. Maybe I needed to play more aggressively that turn. I mean, probably I did. Yes. So that's pretty bad for me. Another thing I should notice that you should notice is that notice how my time is going down. So I mentioned that my Wi-Fi was struggling. So the reason why I didn't get my Riot upload up on time, but it was also unfortunately kicking in during this game where every time I was clicking a move, I was clicking quite quickly, but in spite of that, my moves were taking a long time to actually go through because my connection is absolutely balls. And yeah, as you can see, it's keeping my timer low, and that's pretty relevant as you'll soon see. So I pivoted into Taurus on the Flamethrower, knowing that I probably need to keep the Sax, but although, to be honest, at this point the game is basically over between Excadrill and GMPal. I don't think I can ever win this. So at this point I was really just playing for differential or a choke. But unfortunately I lose on timer because I just wasn't able to click fast enough. Yeah, so I mean, it happens. I'm not too upset. I was definitely losing this game anyways. And yeah, I just fully underestimated the strength of his offense in prep. Completely blindsided by Specs Noivern, which is incredibly funny, given all the Noivern hate. Got absolutely pounded by this guy. So yeah, GG's, bro. Funny game. Um, yeah, I'm just gonna have to be a little bit more mindful in the future. Definitely not a mistake I can be making again, and yeah, I also have to be more mindful of the timer. In hindsight, I literally could have just turned the timer off. It's not a big deal. I mean, yeah, prefer not to lose the timer, rather play the game out. I like putting on timer because I feel like I don't want games to take a million years. Although, to some degree, I also feel like there's it's somewhat dishonorable to turn off the timer, especially if you're the one to turn it on. But I mean, internet is not something within my control, so it's probably a valid reason to turn it off. So yeah, yeah. I mean, I learned my lesson. In the future, I'll make sure to turn off the timer if my internet is really, really dog shit and yeah, things get that dire. But I was a little bit too involved in the battle, just never crossed my mind. I was too busy trying to click quickly. So yeah, yeah, but it was a fun game. In spite of me losing this, I had a blast prepping with a new team, and I'm really confident that this team is gonna too good for me for the rest of the season. However, with this loss, I'm also 2-3, which in an 8-week season is pretty dire. As if I want to control my destiny and ensure that I make playoffs, I have to win out now. I'm confident that I'm capable of that, but yeah, it's definitely a little tricky since I have no margin for error. So I'm going to be definitely piping up this next few weeks. I've got a draft that I'm really comfortable with, and yeah, I'm in a do or die situation, so I'm going to have to really lock in for the end of the season. So yeah, those are my week 4 and week 5 games. I'll be seeing you guys next week with the Pro game. That's going to be a live com because I finally managed to put one of those together, and yeah, should be a fun one to watch. So definitely, I highly recommend you guys come back to check that one out when it goes up. So yeah, those were the games, and I'm just gonna head out now.